Amazing is a, oh, thank you, I will confirm. Collabby for life. I was gonna say like a former collabby, but once you're a collabby, you're always a collabby, and now comes around to help us mentor and do fun things like that and tell you about take-home assignments. She has particularly been involved, right? You've done like a lot of this kind of presentation now, haven't you? Like with the PDAC and stuff.
Fair number, yeah.
So she talks about it a lot. She knows her stuff. We had her like completely redo the take-home assignment stuff. So Mindy, I'll let you take it away. One thing I do want to note before she jumps in is with Career Lab at large, if you've had any feedback so far, if you've spent like too much time, not enough time on it. Hold on, bud. Okay, I'll make you more. Let us know how much time you're spending, what things you are liking, what things aren't working for you or don't seem as valuable, so that we can continue refining this. And in particular, with the take-home assignment, be very, very, very mindful and protective of your time. This is a piece of the Career Lab puzzle that last time took people a lot longer than we would hope that it would, but nobody told us till they'd already spent 15 hours on it. So don't do that. Time box it. Let us know if you're behind. One thing that will happen in real life is that you might not finish a take-home assignment in the time you're given. So it's something you'll have to pay attention to when you're actually doing it too. So be mindful. Let us know when you're spending that time, not after, so that we can help you kind of navigate what to do if you can't finish. Okay.
Awesome.
With that, I will turn it over to Mindy. Hi, Mindy.
Hello. Yeah, it's great to get to see all y'all. I haven't been able to go to any of the other meetings so far. Just time has not worked out for me, so it's good to catch up with y'all now and see y'all now, or at least see some of y'all. So yeah, I have a quick little presentation here. We're gonna go through some of the details around the take-home challenge and like what a take-home challenge is and that sort of thing. So I have a what, how, why. We're gonna go through our challenge, like what that looks like, and then just go through some helpful strategies. So first of all, just some basic information about what this is helpful, I find. Oh, there we go. So it's a task to show off your code skills, which is something that I always appreciated personally. Anytime I had a take-home challenge, I was like, yes, I can actually show that I can actually do this, and this is my place to show off my chops, and it was great. It should be something that's relatively short. I would expect from an employer that it would be limited to 1 to 4 hours. That's not always the case. And there's quite a lot of discussion around it, I think, in the industry as far as like what's expected, what should this look like? If you're doing actual work, you should be paid for it. Like there's some people who are hiring are also just vastly underestimating how long a task can take. And I think there's a lot of discussion around how these look and how these are presented. So there should be a lot of thought that's gone into it. And hopefully it's something that's 1 to 4 hours. And that should be the expectation at the very least. Some of them are actually timed, which is interesting, where you'll be on a platform and you'll be expected to finish it in a couple hours or given to you at a certain time and expect it back by a certain time. I know often the experiences I've had have been like you have, they'll give it to you and say like, hey, get back to us in a few days or a week or something like that. And so you have kind of an open-ended time. So it really depends on what you're working with there. Some of it is expected that you'll be building something from scratch, like completely. Sometimes you'll be given a framework of some sort that's already kind of pre-built and you'll just be adding to it. It really depends, again, on the challenge that you're given. Some examples of that, you might be following like a design spec. You're given information about how something is supposed to look, and then you're supposed to recreate that as well. You could be connecting to or building an API. You might be creating a command line tool. There's all sorts of different examples there of what this can look like for different companies. Also, like how something is done can be different for different companies. Some people use CodePen, so they'll give you an example CodePen, and then you're supposed to add on to that. Some folks use GitHub. I think, if I remember correctly, Zapier uses GitHub for different take-home challenges. And so that can also incorporate then when you're using GitHub, you're also taking a look at like PR descriptions, if that is applicable, or Git commit history and all of that. So you can kind of see a lot of the different aspects of how that person codes and how that person does their job every day. It's often done shortly after a phone screen. I think it really depends on the goals of the take-home challenge and also the company again. Most of mine have been done very shortly after the phone screen. So, and before the manager interview type of thing. And then the why, it's really just to gauge your technical skills, get a good idea of how you code every day. I mean, I think it's personally, again, I like these. I like take-home challenges. I think it's a good way of showing how you work every day. There's often talk about like live coding and whiteboarding and that sort of thing, and it's a different skill I've found. So often you're trying to deal with like the anxiety of coding in front of a complete stranger. But if you're doing a take-home challenge, you're actually doing what you're doing at work most of the time anyways. You're working on a project on your own, or, hopefully you're collaborating with people while you're working as well. But it's a little bit closer to kind of the day-to-day. So I feel like it's a good judge of how that could work. Oh, I was also gonna mention this. So technical skills, when I say technical skills, I don't want to keep that just to like, can you code? Because it's not always just that. Like you're looking at a lot of aspects of this. You are looking at, things like general best practice for coding, are things well named? Are they clean and readable, and that sort of thing is part of it. And sometimes testing can be part of it. But there's also stuff like documentation, and we've talked a lot about that. I think in Collab Lab is, having good comments that are helpful, like why over what, and having a README if that's something that's helpful, or having a good commit history. Like all of those are kind of pieces of gauging that technical skill. It's more than just, can you actually get it to work? Although that's very important. So there's that. I wanted to take a second real quick and see if there are other mentors or developers who've gone through a take-home challenge, and if there's any of the other examples or kind of unique situations that they've been in as far as take-home challenges go. We'll give it a nice, long, awkward pause.
I was wondering if Stacy wanted to talk about her experience with it. Because like when I interviewed Stacy, we actually have a take-home challenge at Zapier, but I didn't have her do it. And I had her do instead like show us work. So like actually, PRs that she had filed on our repos and stuff. So there are different ways to approach it, but kind of giving that the discussion point was sort of the main thing, as opposed to having her come up with new code for that.
I forgot to include it on this slide, but I have it somewhere else, I think, that it does provide a nice discussion point. Like I think that's another one of the main whys, is like you can take that and then use it in later interviews.
Right. Yeah. Like when you do one of these, I don't know why I feel like I have to be quiet because Andrew is. When you do one of these take-home assignments, you will most definitely be talking about it at some time. So when you're doing it, you just have to be sure you're like being really thoughtful and leaving yourself notes, because it might be a couple of weeks before they get back to you and want to continue on. And you have to be like, I don't even remember why I wrote this code. Like that's how it was. Like Andrew was saying, I had to go back through a bunch of my actual work that I did, and having really nice, robust commit messages and PR descriptions and like comments in the code helped me be like, oh, right, this is exactly why I did this. But if you don't have those documentations, then you're kind of just left scrambling to remember why you did things. So be mindful about docs.
And also open it up, like if there are any questions so far too. Awesome. Okay, move on to the next section then. Next thing we're going to do is talk about the challenge that y'all are going to do. And it's a text formatter. And we're going to actually go through and like, I'll show you where this info is in the repo, because that's there as well. And we'll pull that up directly here in just a few minutes, but I wanted to go over it a little bit first. The idea here is that you're going to create a React app that's formatting text. It's going to have two different modes, one that changes every letter to uppercase and one that changes every letter to lowercase. You're going to create as part of that a UI to select or switch between those two modes, and that's kind of open how you want to take that on. So for example, you had some of this is your input where there's one capital letter or a mixture of capital letters in there, however it would look. In uppercase mode, all of those would be changed to caps. In lowercase mode, all of those would be changed to lowercase. There's a few different things that the mentors are going to be looking at. Correctness, does it actually follow all the instructions? Code quality, is it readable? Is it well structured? And then some idiomatic code style, like is it following kind of what you would expect for JavaScript, you know, indentation, capitalization, that sort of thing. Our goals, I wanted to make a quick side note on this. Ideally, this should take no more than 2 hours to complete. And like Stacey said earlier, if it does, please let us know while you're doing it, not 15 hours later. And then like, yeah, be noisy in Slack if you do get stuck. Like, be sure to ask for help and reach out for help when you need it. The idea here also, it's a little bit less about challenging your code skills for this particular challenge, and it's more about kind of experiencing this process of like, what does it mean to have a take-home challenge? What do you do with it? And you know, taking it into an interview situation. So hey, there's that spot where I put it. Use it as a base for your technical interview. I knew it was in here somewhere. So there's that. I also wanted to make a note, it may not be fully representative of what you're going to encounter from actual take-home challenges. The intent here really is the focus on the process and the interview thing. So you might find that some are, that you run into might be a little bit more time consuming, a little bit more difficult. It really will depend again on the situation that you're in. But yeah, wanted to make a note on that. Okay, so I'm going to show you the process we're going to walk through getting this set up. So I think y'all have a link to this, but I'll share it in the chat as well. There you go. So we have our GitHub repo here with all the information in it. It has a short how-to. You're going to fork the repo, you're going to clone it to your machine, and then you can run npm install and npm start, and it'll open that up onto localhost. The exercise and like all of the information that we just went through in the slides were here. So you're welcome to, you have that available. You can take a look at that anytime you need. So I'm actually going to walk through it here. The first step, we're going to fork the repo, which is up here. And from here, we can go ahead and clone this to our local machine. Oh, helps if I actually do git clone. We'll open that up. Do an npm install, and that'll take just a few seconds here. I'm just now looking at the chat. Stacy, that you want to love the take-home challenge as much as I do. That's funny. I know that it is a debated topic. Like I did a search on Twitter just because I was like, wonder what's going to show up if I do this. And there's a few different threads of like, this is terrible and I dislike it. And and I understand that I also like it.
Yeah.
So
no, I feel like the way you're explaining them, they should be a really great opportunity for you to like demonstrate how you work and stuff. But so often I feel like they're kind of like a carousel on fire and nobody really knows what's expected and they take too long. And
I might have had really good take-home challenges. Like I know for New Relics, like it was very well defined, like the criteria was well defined. There was going through the process of like the take-home challenge and the interview with New Relic, like everything was well defined and well described, and I got good feedback on everything, and that was helpful. Like, so I think it probably does depend on your experiences that you've had.
New Relic is so buttoned up when it comes to like hiring and stuff. I feel like I think you're totally right. It depends on who you apply for. Like, are you applying at a big company that like has their business together? Or are you near the San Francisco Bay Area applying to a lot of startups? In
I
which
could see
case it will
that.
be a mess.
Yeah, I
Okay,
especially
while
was
this,
with
oh, go ahead.
the Ignite program in particular, which John is amazing about that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
so
So
good. While this loads up real quick, in the take-home intro to the take-home assignment Notion, which I'll share a link in the chat. This is where you'll get like the information about today. Obviously, there's a little bit in there, but you're partnered up with somebody to get rolling on this take-home assignment, just like you were in Collab Lab, like your actual project. So you'll be paired up with somebody, and you can kind of like talk through an approach, how you're going to approach it, and like maybe even make a little way on it if you have time. And then the same person is the one you'll be partnered with for prepping for your mock interviews, so that you'll have some context to help each other, like, talk through things and word things in a way, because you'll both have kind of worked through the approach together too. So you can find your partners there and then just schedule with them like you would in normal Collab Lab.
awesome. All right, so npm install is done. We'll do npm start. I think you can do them together, but I did them yesterday together and it didn't work for me. So I'm just doing them separate for y'all. So, and that'll open up in localhost, and you can see kind of where the app is at right now. Eventually. So right now there's a form here. You click submit, and then whatever your formatted text is will go here. So whether it's all uppercase or all lowercase. And I can show you where the main part of the code lives in here under app.js. So yeah, you'll be doing all of your work in, well, you can separate it out into different files. I shouldn't say you should do all of your work in here, because however you'd like to do that, however is most helpful, most clear. Yeah, this is where we'll start though, probably. I think that's the last of my slides for this particular section. So I wanted to stop here. Any questions on this particular section on the take-home challenge?
I have a question. So
Yes.
are we pair programming through this assignment, or are we just discussing it with our partner after we've done it ourselves?
I think the idea is like if you'd like to kind of get the ball rolling with your partner, you can do that and just like kind of figure out how you want to start with it. Stacy, I would assume that they could partner their way through it if they wanted to.
I don't see why not. Like, it's good to like figure out how to do it on your own so that you can be more prepared for when you go to do one. But if you have time and you want to, like, the main goal here is to do the take-home assignment, get familiar with the code you're writing and what take-home assignments are, and then learn how to talk about it in an interview. And I think that there's a lot of benefit to talking that through with somebody, especially if this is like your first time you're going into something like this. So let's see, Andrew says both people should end up with their own repo and solution. So
good call.
yeah, like if you want to work through the solutions together, good, but just make sure you have your own and that you are each individually familiar with it so that you can talk about it in an interview. So even if you are pairing through it, be very, very involved in the process. But yeah, have your own. Other thoughts on that, Andrew?
Yeah, I think that's, you want to basically have your own repo just so that you can, in the interview, the mock interview, you have, yeah, like your own code to talk about. But I think it's fine to, you can get together and kind of pair through the problem solving part of it, for sure.
Any other questions?
I had a question. So because I haven't done a take-home test before. Now, I know that this is relying primarily on the functionality, it appears. How much do people lean into adding a little CSS, or is that something that is typically not done? What kind of styling? Yeah. How much does someone dive into that, and how much of that is too much when it comes to a take-home potentially?
It's actually a good question that I don't know that I have the answer to, because I haven't done that many that had CSS terribly involved. Beyond one, I've seen one that has it has a design that you're supposed to create. And so like there's like a specific set of things that you're supposed to do, CSS wise and looks wise. I'd be curious. I don't know if Stacey or Andrew have thoughts on that.
As far as whenever it comes to like somebody looking at your take home assignments, I don't have thoughts on that end, but I can tell you that implementing style can get very out of hand very fast. So when you're approaching a take home assignment, do exactly what they say to do first. And then if you have time and it allows you to have more time to embellish it and add other things, do that. But definitely be sure you're mostly spending time getting familiar with the code that you're writing for whatever they're asking for, because that's, again, what's going to go into your technical interview, because they're prepared with questions around that. So they're going to care less probably about your styling. So if you have time and you feel confident, do it, but make sure you know what they're asking and you can show them that you did everything they're asking.
I might also add, like there are some types of technical interviews where you're adding on to whatever it is that you've done. And there is, I could see a situation where adding some styling could make whatever additions are harder or easier. But I don't know, that could be something to keep in mind as well, as just trying to keep it simple and not get overly ambitious with it.
It's like gets weird with styling too, because it's like you're like, oh well, I'm just gonna make this button styled, and then you're like, oh, now the rest looks worse, and then you're like, well, I'll just do this and put two. You're like, well, now I maybe should do that, and now this is kind of hacky. So it's like, just don't let it. The scope creep there is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Beware.
That is a general tip actually about doing interviews. I don't think I have it in here, but as far or for take-home challenges, is like the scope creep can happen, and like just being aware of what the actual requirements are and sticking to those first. I think that's a good call out. Awesome. Okay. We'll move on and talk a little bit about just some helpful strategies. I think I mentioned this earlier, and I think we've just kind of touched on it too. It's generally a better idea to make sure that you have something that's working over something that's like elegant. And I tend to be a little bit guilty of this, is because I want it to be just right. And I found that even in my technical interviews and stuff as well, like I wanted to do it the right way. And that always kind of tripped me up. So I would focus on getting it working. And then if you have time to refactor after that into something that might be more elegant or more clear or more, I mean, clear is great, but definitely start with working, get it better as you go. Another piece that I wanted to mention is breaking things down into smaller pieces. So we have, our challenge, like there are kind of like, you can look at it and see, oh, there's at least two pieces in here. We have two different modes that we're kind of dealing with a little bit separately, at least two pieces. You could even break it down further. But I would try to approach the problem and figure out small steps that you can do to get you on the way, and try not to implement all of it all at once. Find a small step, implement it, test it to make sure it works the way you expect it to, and then move on to the next step. So that's something that can be really helpful in getting the problem completed. You can also use a problem solving strategy, and there's one that I've learned and I really enjoy, and I'm going to talk through it a little bit here. We also have a full tech talk on it where I kind of explain it in depth, and I think I'm going to leave that to y'all. If you have time to go and take a look at that you can, but I'll brush in, or jump into it a little bit. And there's also other problem solving strategies too. You can do some Google searches for it. It doesn't even have to be related to coding. Like there's a handful of different ways to approach problems in general. There's also, like, if you think about solving math problems, there's a lot of different math problem solving strategies that also could be applicable here in the coding world. So definitely do some Googling, find one that works well for you. If PDAC works well for you, that's great. It's been one that's helpful for me, and especially in like communicating how it is that I'm thinking through a problem. So Stacey, it looks like, is that the link to the Tech Talk? Awesome. So that's the link to the Tech Talk. I also have a link to some resources too that I'll share with y'all as well. PDAC is from the code school that I went to, which is called Launch School, and they have this 5-step process where you have the problem, examples, data structure, algorithm, and code. Like that's kind of the process that you go through. You'll notice that coding is last because a lot of this is about looking at the problem and understanding what you're going to do with it before you actually start coding. And I think that's really useful because a lot of the time, I know personally, I've gone into something thinking, oh, I understand how to do this and I'll start coding. And I realize I misunderstood the requirements, or I didn't actually have a good way forward. Excuse me. I just thought I did. So it's very useful for me to kind of take a step back and think through what's going on. The first step is understanding the problem, and that's kind of taking a look at like inputs and outputs. Like, what do you expect to go into this function? What do you expect to come out of it? It's talking about, rewording whatever the problem is, breaking it down into smaller steps. Like that breaking down into smaller pieces is a part of understanding the problem, and thinking through all of those different aspects there. The next step is to come up with examples or test cases. So kind of thinking through what, if I send in a 2, what do I expect to come out of this particular function? Or what do I expect to come out of this process? And kind of break down as many of those as you possibly can, especially if like there's different edge cases that you might want to see, like if something is null and it's going into there, what do you expect to come out? If something is 0, or if something's not the type of thing that you're expecting to put into it, what comes out of the function? How do you expect it to react to that? So coming up with examples of what that looks like. I was about to say something that would be helpful for this particular take-home challenge, but now I'm like, maybe I shouldn't say that. But just thinking about different inputs. What if you put stuff in there, what's going to come out? And then data structure is thinking through what's going to be the most helpful data structure for your particular problem. Sometimes this can be really obvious, like if you're working in arrays, like the problem talks about arrays, you know that you're going to use arrays. Sometimes it's a little less so, especially if you are unfamiliar with the language. The more familiar you are with the language, and the more familiar I cannot talk yet this morning. Familiar you are with the type of problem that you're doing, you're going to be able to come up with these a little bit easier. Sometimes it's a bit harder as a newbie to kind of think through what's the best situation here. But the data structure is helpful. It can help you kind of figure out the approach that you're going to take, which is really the next step, which is the algorithm. And that's basically just explaining each different step that you're going to have as you go through it. And it can be in pseudocode, which is kind of a formalized thing. It can be in a less formalized version of pseudocode, like this needs to happen, and then this needs to happen, and then this needs to happen. Like just kind of explaining step by step in words, in plain English, or plain language, rather, what it is that you expect to need to do to be able to get through it. The nice thing then is by the time you get to code, you already have a whole plan, and you can just go through and do it. And this is helpful when you're by yourself, but it's also particularly helpful when you're doing a take-home or a mock interview, because you can go through this whole process and you can write all of this down and explain it to the person that you're working with. Like, these are the things that I'm looking at, and this is how I'm approaching this problem. And by the time you get down to code, like if you're stressed out and you're anxious, having that algorithm right above that you can kind of go back to and look at and see, oh yeah, I need to do this, and I need to do this, and I need to do this. Like, you can kind of keep your place a little bit better. I also found having PDAC like in my tool belt was really useful for, like, there was always a first step that I knew I was always going to do. Because I would always go through and do the input and the output. What's going into this, what's going to come out of it. And it was just kind of this, like, not natural isn't the right word, but automatic thing that I just started doing every single time that I was going to solve a problem. So when I got into an interview situation, I did the same thing. And it helped kind of bring some relief to the anxiety that I was feeling. And so I knew what I was going to do. I know how to do this. I've done this before. And it automatically breaks down the problem into smaller pieces as well. You're not dealing with the whole problem. You're dealing with one small piece of the problem. So that's PDAC in a nutshell. And again, there's a whole lot longer video that actually also goes through some examples, and you can see what that looks like. I also have a link to the GitHub repo that I kind of created that goes along with this. I'll share that in the chat. And that has a few different resources. There's a few different, I always lose the chat. There she is. There we go. So there's yeah, a few different articles that have been done by other people from Launch School, I think in particular, actually, about how to approach this and kind of breaking it down a little bit more and like why you might want to do it and just different takes on it. I definitely do have a different take on it, I think, than Code School, just a little, or than Launch School rather. Mine's, I think, a little bit more fluid, but everybody has a kind of walks away with it with a different approach. So yeah, I will move on from PDEC there. Definitely do check it out though. It's very useful. As far as for the Career Lab, we also have a couple different specific tips. One of those was to work with your partner. We kind of already talked about that a little bit. We also talked about being noisy in Slack if something isn't working, if you're kind of stuck on something, like we're here to help you with that. So feel free to reach out in that channel. And then also, I believe this is how we're doing it, but I also want to double check with Stacey and Andrew as far as once you're done, like go ahead and send a link to the work that you've done on your fork, send it to the person who is doing the interview with you when you're done. Is that right?
That's exactly right. So I don't know how much y'all have been in Notion. Like our hope is that Notion is kind of like the source of truth where you all go when you know that you need information. But of course, it's like we're just doing it. So there's definitely ways it can improve. So if you're finding that you're not able to find the stuff that you need in Notion, be really loud about it so that we can make sure we're putting things where you would find them. But there are 2 Notion pages for the take-home assignment piece of the Career Lab puzzle. One is about this stuff we covered today, where Mindy will drop some of the links to the slides and stuff that we're dealing with. And that's where you'll find your partners for pairing up on getting this work started. Then there's another Notion page that is for the actual completion of it, that will link you to where you can find the mentor that you need to send it to. So if you're digging around and things are confusing, please let me know so I can fix that.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, so and that kind of concludes things. I don't know, are there any other questions about this or anything else that's come up in the interim?
So just high level too. Now we know what the take-home assignment is and where to find it. You can go see who your partner is. The very next thing you want to do is schedule a pairing with your partner to just talk through your approach, pair through some of it if you want, make sure you have your own. And then when you're finished with it, send it to the mentor you are mock interviewing with. Again, be very mindful of the time that you're spending and keep us in the loop. Okay, now, questions? Comments, concerns, thoughts, hopes, dreams, wishes?
I had a question. I know you all were saying, and it makes sense to me that, making really good commits so that you understand, you're able to talk through and your interviewer is able to understand your thought process. Do you recommend doing PRs too, or is that kind of overkill?
That's a good question. I've actually never done one with a PR or with GitHub, so I'd be curious to hear Stacey and Andrew. I see Andrew shaking his head, nodding his head.
If you're using GitHub, I think absolutely do that. Like that's like next level. I feel like if I were looking at your take-home assignments and you were doing like beautiful PR descriptions like you all did at Collab Lab, good commit messages, I'd be like, this person is more than a coder. This person is a good teammate. Yeah, exactly. It is a great chance to show how well you write PRs. But like Mindy said, a lot of the times it'll just be like a code pen or something where you can't necessarily do that. In that case, lean on like comments and stuff that are helpful for you and will help guide you through the work that you did.
I have a question. Have you ever had a challenge when you had no idea how to approach it? And if yes, what did you do?
I actually haven't, because I haven't had too many. I've only been in the career for like a year and some change. So I'd be curious again, Stacey and Andrew.
I had one where I had to I think it was like one of my first ones ever. I had to build a command line tool and I was like, the command line, really? I don't know anything about that. And so I went on, I started Googling and finding because I had unlimited time, they were like, return it next week. And so I was just like YouTubing like how to build a command line tool. And I got kind of like a basic idea of how to do it. And then I just reached out to one of my mentors and I was like, can you pair with me through the coming up with an approach here. So lean on your people. And then probably like a little bit of the PDAC stuff, like really break down the problem and be like, what even do I need to solve for? And then that'll start helping you guide where you can do research on like, okay, so I know I need to create a command line tool and these are how they work. Like, how do I get started? Step one, you know, and I'll start like making those notes more robust. Other thoughts? Yes, command line tool can be terrifying. This is very out of my element.
In some ways, it's more important or more impressive for you to go from not knowing the thing, learning the thing, and implementing a solution. So, you know, let your interviewers know, like if you're like, I've never done this before, but this is what I came up with. I'd be like, oh, that's actually really impressive.
Yeah, one thing that kind of goes along with that too, like my advice always to like early career engineers and just people, humans at large, is the first thing you need to learn is how to confidently and humbly say that you don't know something. So when you're
Yes.
going into like your mock interview practices and stuff, come with like a different ways to be like, you know, I actually don't know the answer to that, but this is how I would probably find that out. It seems like I could Google this, or I know a couple people who are like really well versed in this stuff. I would like probably reach out to them to get some advice on which direction to go. Because you're going to be saying a lot of I don't know, and when you can do that with less pressure on you feeling like you need to know things, you're going to grow faster. You're going to be more open to learning. People are going to want to help you because they're like, oh, I know that thing, I can show you. So learn how to say no that you don't know.
I actually have two thoughts on that too. That's totally, yes. So one person once told me that sometimes with their technical interviews, and I don't know if this is common or not, but they would ask questions until you say you don't know, because for a lot of folks, the technical interview isn't about like whether you can do the job or not. It's often like, what would we need to do to bring you on? Like, what are your knowledge gaps? What are the things that we would need to maybe to support you in that? Like, they're kind of trying to gauge that kind of thing also. So that's one thing. The other thing is I actually talked to a hiring manager a long while ago. I got a interview with them, and then the very beginning they're like, so we actually already hired somebody for this position. I was like, oh no. But they're like, we can go through and like do like a mock interview if you want, or if you just want to chat or what have you. And so I was like, well, let's just chat. And I kind of just talked about like what they normally would do, like what are the kind of questions that they would ask, and what are their approaches to hiring. And one of the things he said is actually say they wanted to go through and have they wanted to hear somebody say I don't know, like when someone said I don't know, like it was just like this green light, like it's, and be okay with it. Like that was something that they were looking for and they were hoping for, to have them say I don't know. So it really is like, it's a good thing. And if it's not a good thing at whatever company that you're interviewing at, then maybe you don't want to work there. Is my opinion anyway. Although for the first software job, I'm like, I don't know if I would actually say no. So I was so eager for that first job. But at the same time, you do want to work places that are helpful and supportive and are okay with you saying, I don't know.
Other thoughts, questions, other questions? Ideas, experiences?
So while we were here, I was coding away a little at my solution for it on my fork, created a PR and merged it, and it merged it to the main repo. So I'm gonna undo that now, but just a little word of caution, like make sure your PR is pointed at your fork and not the main repo. Oops.
It's a good call out. So y'all feel ready to take this on and go for it? Awesome.
Again, I know I sound like a broken record, but I really want to protect you all. So if you feel like it's taking too much time, be noisy, and then we can have a discussion about like what to do if you don't finish it on time, which is basically if you're going through like a PDAC style approach to it, you'll still have something to show. You want to have something to show. You've thought through the approach. You can talk through what gaps you still need to fill. but be mindful of it for your sake, for Career Lab's sake. Good? Okay. Yeah. I was like, good. Yeah. With that, then I guess we can say goodbye. Don't forget, find your partner in Notion. Schedule like a pairing where you can talk through an approach. Do as much or as little as you want. Make sure you have your own. And then when you're done, send it to the mentor. Be loud about questions. We're totally here for you.
Awesome.
Okay. All right. Well, see you soon, friends.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.